Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories, where we tell tales to take you away from today. Sometimes the elements of a show just comes together in perfect harmony and flow from segment to segment like butter. This is not one of those shows. In fact, I started out with the idea that this program would be a Western cornucopia. Not gonna happen. So, I'm going to label this one a hodgepodge of tales ranging from out west to not, from emails to speeches. I do hope you enjoy it, and here is a 5-minute mystery to start it all off.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by Mr. Obvious. You always know what to expect from Mr. Obvious because he's so darn predictable. If you want a challenge, then best avoid the obvious and choose Mr. Obscure instead.
Betty, come on in.
Oh, it's a wretched night out.
Here, let me have your coats.
Where's Helen, Arnold?
In making herself beautiful.
Everybody's going to be at the club at 8:30.
Oh, swell. But I wonder what's keeping that delivery boy.
Delivery boy?
Yes, I had a corsage made up for Helen. It was supposed to be delivered an hour ago. If you two don't mind, I'll run out and get it. Helen should be out in a few minutes.
Sure, go right ahead. Oh, that thunder, it's frightening.
Yeah, thunder never hurt anybody.
Just the same, I wish it would stop. Turn up the radio, George, and let's dance.
Well, I'm back. Isn't Helen ready yet?
I haven't heard a sound from her.
Say, I better go in and hustle her up a bit. I thought sure she'd be ready by now.
That's funny that she's not ready yet. Helen's usually so prompt.
George, Betty, call a doctor, quick.
Yeah, what is it? What's happened?
It's Helen here in the bathtub. She's fallen and hit her head.
Fallen? Good heavens.
Here, let's have a look.
Help me get her out of here.
In here on the bed. There.
Call a doctor, quick, please.
It's too late, Arnold. Helen's dead.
Huh?
Cruel blow on her head.
I can't believe it.
Say, that's odd.
What?
But Helen would be taking a bath with her makeup on. You put your makeup on after you take a bath.
Seems logical. You ought to know. And look, there's rain here on the floor by this bedroom window.
Lots of it. Hey, it's being opened wide.
What? What does it all mean, George?
Well, I don't know what it means yet, but I intend to find out right now. Betty, would you mind going back into the bathroom and closing the door behind you? Then scream as loudly as you can.
Well, I don't mind, but why?
Never mind. Just do as I say.
All right, if you think it'll help.
Just as I thought. Arnold, have you got a gun?
Oh, sure, it's there in the desk drawer. Be careful, it's loaded.
Well, now that I performed a little experiment. George, what are you doing with that gun?
I'm covering Arnold with it until the police arrive. You see, he's just murdered his wife.
How did George know Arnold killed his wife? We'll have the solution in just a moment. But first...
Okay, I'm no detective, but this one is as obvious as the makeup on her face or perhaps the water by the window. I think that this is a case that even Mr. Obvious would get right. But you never know, and we've been fooled before. So let's head back and see. This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by Mr. Obvious. You always know what to expect from the obvious.
And now for the solution of our mystery.
But, George, how? When did he do it?
Remember when Arnold left for the florist? He went all right, but he also went around to the back of the house and climbed into Helen's bedroom through the window. He found her in the bathroom, but she wasn't taking a bath. She was putting on her makeup. thanks to your observation, Betty. When I asked you to go into the bathroom and scream, I had a reason. You see, we heard you scream. We didn't hear Helen. Therefore, she didn't scream. Now I ask you, who could have entered Helen's bedroom without frightening her in the least way? Simply a bit of logic, my dear. Her husband.
Truly, a simple bit of logic. So simple that even Mr. Obscure would have trouble messing it up. Well, anyway, this 5-minute mystery was brought to you by Mr. Obvious. If it isn't obvious, then it's probably convoluted and complex. Which, of course, would mean it was being presented by Mr. Byzantine. Get it?
What's that you say?
We have 2 emails to read. The first comes from Omar about the radio version of Ron's Amazing Stories. He writes, "Hey Ron, I live in South Florida, Miami to be exact, and was wondering if your live radio broadcast is available here to listen to. An amazing fan, Omar." Right now, the radio version of the podcast can be heard Saturday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern. We are located in these great cities: Boulder and Colorado Springs in Colorado, Lancaster, PA, Las Vegas, Nevada, Long Beach, California, Macon, Georgia, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and these 3 great towns in Florida: Newport Richey, Tampa, and the Villages. So, sorry, Omar, no Miami just yet, but thank you for listening and for the question. Our second email comes from Germany. Ron, I just can't get enough of your radio shows. You have a talent, to say the least. I can and do hear the same show repeatedly. On the last podcast, the story about the World War II soldier who was given a helping hand gave me a cold chill. My thanks to the relative who is listening to these veterans and their stories. It is my hope that these stories will be passed down and somehow documented. That particular tale refreshed my memory of my Uncle Barney, who was a cook on a military ship in the Pacific during World War II. After I completed my engineer training at Fort Leonardwood, Missouri, I received my orders to report to my next assignment, which would be at Fort Devens, Massachusetts. The trip from Fort Devens took me through Detroit, Michigan, where my uncle lived. I was to spend a few days there before traveling on to my new assignment. One evening as we sat talking, I noticed a lump of metal on his mantelpiece. I asked him if it was a meteorite that he had found. "No," he said, "that reminds me of how close to death a person can get if not for fate." He went on to explain that during the war in the Pacific, he was a cook on a ship. One evening, he had just gotten off a long shift and was looking forward to several hours of rest. He climbed up into his berth, and after barely closing his eyes, he was awoken by a superior telling him they needed him again in the galley because one of his mates had taken ill. Grudgingly, he got up and reported once again for duty. Within minutes of his arrival, there was an explosion that shook the entire ship. Later, the officer of the deck came to my uncle and told him that his berth had taken a direct hit by a Japanese plane. The piece of scrap metal that he kept on the mantel was found where he was supposed to be sleeping. It was a part of the very plane that had nearly destroyed the ship and surely would have killed him. At this point, I want to add a little bit of humor to this story about my Uncle Barney. He and my aunt were talking, and he asked if I liked homemade donuts. "Sure," I said, noticing my aunt waving her hands furiously behind him. he jumped up and ran into the kitchen. As we heard the clatter of pots and pans, I asked my aunt why she was so excited about his offer. Were his donuts that bad? No, she said, they're great. But remember, he cooked in the Navy for thousands of sailors, and his recipe has never been updated. Now he'll fill up my pantry with his leftover donuts for months. Thank you to all my fellow veterans. God bless, Tom from Berlin. Okay, folks, it's time to head out west for a story from the Gunsmoke universe. Why call it a universe? While the show was definitely based on the Old West, they still were fiction. Some people find that hard to believe, and to this day look up to see when Matt Dillon was Marshal of Dodge City. The City of Commerce reports that they get many requests for gravesite locations for the characters of the show. How about that? Our story is the typical Gunsmoke fare, which means that it's a great story with superior acting and a well-written plot. In this one, Matt defends a stagecoach stop from would-be thieves who are after the gold that the stage is carrying. It is called the Shooting Stopover and first aired on August 30th of 1959.
Around Dodge City and in the territory on west, there's just one way to handle the killers and the spoilers, and that's with a U.S. Marshal and the smell of gun smoke. Gunsmoke, starring William Conrad, the story of the violence that moved west with young America, and the story of a man who moved with it.
I'm that man, Matt Dillon, United States Marshal. The first man they look for and the last they want to meet. It's a chancy job, and it makes a man watchful and a little lonely.
Bert Parks is a man of many talents, not the least of which is his ability to ride herd on 3 highly offbeat CBS radio personalities. When Hermione Gingold, Kenny Delmar, and Parker Fenley focus on a subject, there's no telling what direction the funny business will take. Each Monday through Friday, this merry threesome approaches incredibly trivial matters and inflates them to hilarious proportions. If you're not fundamentally opposed to laughing, sample radio's freshest new daytime comedy panel, Funny Side Up, tomorrow on CBS Radio. Another feature in the distinctively different pattern of programming you always enjoy when your dial is set where it is now.
You know, if you're not careful, Doc, you're going to finish that beer.
Well, why shouldn't I finish it?
There's no need to get your back up. I just meant you usually don't have time to finish it. More than likely, you get called away before you get your beer half drunk, that's all.
Well, yes, well, I guess you're right. I suppose I've mentioned to you before that some of us have to work at our job.
Yes, Doc, you mentioned it.
Hello, Matt.
Well, Kitty.
Afternoon, Kitty.
Don't get up. I'll sit down with you.
All right.
Well, what's the argument about this time?
There's no argument, Kitty, but sometimes it's just about as tough to agree with, Doc, as it is to argue with it.
Well, either way, it's hard to have a conversation with somebody who doesn't know the difference.
Thanks, Doc.
I'm not even going to try to understand you two. Can I get you another beer?
No, thanks, Kitty. I have to get back.
I guess I'll have one, Kitty.
Yes, I might have known.
Dillon?
Over here, Chester.
Dillon, excuse me, Miss Kitty, Doc.
Yes, Chester.
What is it, Chester?
Well, it's just a telegraph. Just come in for you.
Oh, let me see it.
Here you are. Say, you sure was right suspicioning that Gurney fellow. It sounds like you know what's in that wire.
Yeah, sure does.
Well, of course I know what's in it. It's my business to know when a prisoner turns out to be a wanted man, ain't it, Mr. Dillon?
Oh, is that the man you locked up last night, Matt?
Yeah, Doc, I sent an inquiry about it. Yeah, he's wanted, all right.
What for, Matt?
Murder? 2 of them. Wichita.
Wichita, well, anyway, he won't be bothering you long.
What do you mean?
Well, they'll be sending for him from Wichita, won't they? Getting him off your hands?
It's not that easy, Doc. Afraid I'm going to have to deliver him. Well, come on, Chester. We'll take the afternoon stage. Looks to me as though that team could just about get there by itself, Jim, without you to drive it.
I expect them horses could do it all right, Marshal. They made the run often enough.
Yeah. Well, the ruts in the road ought to be enough to guide them, even if nothing else does.
Yep. It don't get no smoother, does it?
No, I'll say not.
Long time since you rode with me, Marshal.
Well, I'd just as soon not be making the trip this time, either.
That Gurney fella giving you trouble?
Nah, no more than usual. Chester gives me more trouble than he does.
Yep. How's that?
Well, he doesn't cotton to being shackled to a prisoner when there's a pretty schoolmarm riding across the coach from him.
It says I blame him.
Well, I told him he'd have to go slow anyway, with a preacher riding right along there, too.
I guess you're right about that.
Yeah.
Get up, boy. Come on. Well, I'll tell you true, Marshal. I'm kind of glad to have you riding shotgun this trip.
Huh? Are you worried about the gold?
Well, there's a lot of money under this seat. I ain't riding easy until I get rid of it.
Yeah. We're stopping here at Hat Creek Station, aren't we?
That's right, Marshal. Gonna change horses.
Good. I'll be glad to stretch my legs. I guess I'll cut Chester loose for a while.
You better warn the school, Marshal.
Yeah.
Whoa there, boy. Whoa. Well, I don't see old Miller. Help him get out, will you, Marshal? I'm going to have to unhitch the team myself.
Sure, Jim.
You going to be stopped here for a spell, Mr. Dillon?
Yeah, Chester, come on out. Well, come on out.
Well, I can't exactly make it alone.
Well, why don't you bring Gurney with you, then?
Well, sure, I'll be... Oh, excuse me. After you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Oh, here you are, ma'am. Let me give you a hand down. There we go.
Kindly, Marshal.
All right, now, Gurney, come on. Let's get you over. Excuse me, Parson. You go out ahead, sir.
Thank you.
Come on, Gurney. Come on. I want to set this cussing stage all day.
You pull them shackles once more, I'll wrap them around your gullet.
I'd be worrying about my own gullet if I was you.
All right, that's enough. You'll find coffee inside, folks.
Thanks. I'd like some coffee myself, Mr. Dillon.
You'll get it, Chester. You'll get it. Here, hold out your arm. I'll take the manacles off.
Declare I won't be sorry to be free of the likes of him, and that's the truth.
If I ever get this near you and I am free, you won't live to complain no more.
Mr. Dillon, you ain't gonna let Gurney wander around loose in the stage station, are you?
No, Chester. We'll shackle him to the wheel while we're stopped. All right, Gurney, come on.
Yeah, you do that, Marshal. You just locked me up good. Why, the two of you together ain't man enough to hold me.
Well, don't you worry about it. There.
Pardon me, Marshal.
Yes, ma'am?
I couldn't help noticing what you're doing to this man.
What do you mean?
Chaining him to the wheel.
Well, he's a prisoner, man.
And he just ain't no good at all, Mr. Randall. Why, he's the worst kind of a thief and murderer.
Never mind, Chester.
I know you have to guard him, Marshal, but he's a human being.
Well, he's wanted for 2 murders.
Does that mean you have to treat him like a wild beast?
Well, I have to make sure that he doesn't get away, ma'am.
Well, you could bring him inside out of the sun, couldn't you?
And I have to think of the safety of the other passengers. And besides, it's not going to hurt him.
Marshal Dillon, I believe in the dignity of man.
Well, so do I, ma'am. The trouble is, Gurney here doesn't.
Everywhere you go, across the country trip or across the street party, you carry the fun with you when you own a Columbia stereophonic high-fidelity phonograph. There's a marvelous selection of 7 new portable models in smart new color combinations at your Columbia phonograph dealer, from which you may choose. Each one is a masterpiece of design and beauty. More quality, more features, and more styling have been built into these sturdy portables than ever before. How much fun you'll have enjoying all the wonderful new sound of stereo records. Regular records take on new beauty, too, when played on handsome Columbia portables. You'll be amazed at the big console sound that is reproduced by Columbia portable stereophonic high-fidelity phonographs. You'll thrill to the excitement of Stereo One by Columbia, number 1 in the wonderful world of sound. And Columbia portables are economical, too. Prices start as low as $24.95. See them and hear them at your Columbia phonograph dealer.
It isn't exactly as you presented the case, Marshal.
How's that, Reverend?
There's nobody here. There's no coffee.
No coffee? Boy, I never heard of such a thing. I'll see if I can.
Well, there's usually somebody around. He may be out with the horses.
You ought to take some water to that man out there.
Don't worry, ma'am. We won't let him go dry.
There don't seem to be nobody around at all. I don't know where that old man's gone off to.
Well, he was here the last time he came through, wasn't he, Jim?
Sure he was. He was always out front waiting. Old man Miller never saw nobody between stages, and he made up for it all at once, like to talk your arm off.
He wouldn't be likely to miss a stop on purpose, would he?
Not him, Wyatt.
Well, I declare it's the truth, Mr. Jim. There ain't no coffee. Just a little bit in the pot that must have been left over from breakfast, and that is stone cold.
Did you look outside for the old man who runs the place, Chester?
Well, no, sir, I didn't. He might could be out back a ways, though. I didn't go out there. I was mostly interested in the coffee.
Well, I looked out there some, didn't see nothing.
Yeah, looks like we're stuck for it. All right, come on, Jim. I'll help you round up some fresh horses in the corral.
That's about the worst of it, Marshal.
Huh? Well, how's that?
When I took our team around back to exchange them, there weren't no other horses.
Well, I think we better take a real look around then. Chester,
yes, sir?
You keep an eye on Gurney here. Jim, you come with me, huh?
All right, Marshal.
Mr. Dillon, look, the stage horses. Somebody's running them out of the corral.
The gold.
Oh, wait a minute, Jim. Where do we get... Jim, come back! Chester, cover me. I'm going after him.
Yes, sir.
Stay low, Jim! You heard bad?
No, they're running yonder toward them rocks.
Yeah.
One of them run off the horses, and the other two was after the gold on the stage.
Yeah, they almost got it, too.
I got to get it down off the box.
Now, you stay right there. I'll get it.
They'll cut you down.
Now, you stay down. I'm going to run for it. That's all right, Jim. I got it. Chester!
Yes, sir, Mr. Dillon.
Yeah, you stay here with Jim while I unlock Gurney from that wheel.
He ain't worth taking a chance for.
Maybe not, Chester, but like the lady reminded us, he's still a human being. There you go, Jim. You'll be all right here.
Thanks, Marshal.
Chester.
Yes, sir.
As soon as you get Gurney tied, heat some water, will you?
Yes, sir, I'll do that.
I saw a good many wounded in the war, Marshal. May I offer my help?
I'm glad to have it, Reverend. He caught one on the side. Well, let's get his shirt off.
Yes, I see. And the bullet will have to be extracted.
Yeah. You any good at this, Reverend?
I've never actually operated, Marshal. Still, if you need me to do it.
No, I'll do it. I guess I'm a little more familiar with bullets than you are.
Just tell me how I can assist.
Well, it might just help to have somebody in your line of work standing by.
Very well.
Chester, you getting some hot water?
Yes, sir, I am. I'm trying to, but there sure ain't much water there in the bucket.
Well, you bring me what you got, then.
Yes, sir. I'll sure get thirsty if we have to stay here for long.
Well, those gunmen out there, we'll have time to worry about that later. Miss Lorinda? I think maybe you better get some sleep. I'll watch Jim for a while.
I don't mind, Marshal. I'm not tired.
No, you go on now. It's getting light, and you need your rest.
There was only something I could do for him.
There's nothing to do. But wait.
I suppose you're right. Please call me if you need me, Marshal.
Yes, I will. You try to get some rest, huh?
I think I'd best get us some breakfast first.
If you're thinking about breakfast, Miss Lorraine, you got another thing coming. There ain't no food in them cupboards at all.
I know that, Mr. Proudfoot, but I have some food I brought with me.
You brought some with you?
I always pack a lunch. I'll get it.
Uh-huh.
Now, let me see. I'll divide it. I'll save some for Mr. Buck.
That ain't gonna leave you too much.
No, but it's better than nothing. Now, let's see. There's the Reverend and the Marshal and you and Mr. Buck and the prisoner.
Are you planning on dividing up this little bit of food with him?
Well, he's as hungry as any of us.
Well, yes, ma'am, but he ain't... Well, I mean, he...
I'll take the prisoners first. I brought you some food.
Well, now, ma'am, it's mighty nice of you. It's mighty nice. But, I ain't able to eat it with my hands tied behind me.
Marshal?
Yes, ma'am?
I think this man's hands should be untied so that he can eat.
I'm not sure, Miss Loretta.
Please, Marshal.
All right, Chester, untie his hands, will you?
Well, I sure do hate to do this, Mr. John.
I was afraid like you are. I'd hate to do it, too.
Don't you worry none about me being afraid of the likes of you. There. Won't hurt my feelings none if you choke on that food.
The little lady don't feel that way, do you now?
You're entitled to some nourishment.
Sure is nice to have you on my side, ma'am.
I'm only on the side of what's right.
Well, I don't blame you for choosing me over these two.
Why, she ain't doing no such a thing. You just keep your mouth shut.
Never mind, Chester.
Well, you ain't choosing him, are you, Miss Lorenda?
I'm choosing the ideas I try to teach in my school, Mr. Proudfoot. No man can be considered guilty until he's had a fair trial.
How about that, lawman? Did you ever think of that?
Yes, I have, Gurney.
I'm just saying I think all law is important, Marshal.
Yes, ma'am. And so do I.
Money can evaporate with astonishing speed. That's not too surprising, of course. We like our families to enjoy a fair share of the good things of life. But it's also important to save, to ensure a secure future. This is seldom easy to do, this saving. There just seems to be too many immediate demands on our resources. But there are at least two proven ways to make your savings mount at a steady pace. One is called the Payroll Savings Plan. Under this plan, you accumulate dependable United States savings bonds where you work automatically. The other is the Bond-a-Month Plan, available where you bank. This, too, will pile up safe, secure United States savings bonds for you. The Payroll Savings Plan where you work, the Bond-a-Month Plan where you bank. Pick the plan most convenient to you and sign up tomorrow for your future's sake.
That's the last drop of the water, Marshal. Yeah. I parceled it out slowly to the driver during the day, but he's burning up with fever. I don't know how long he'll last now that it's gone. Well, I'll go out and get some more.
Well, Mr. Dillon, them fellas will pick you off going through well sure as anything.
We gotta have water, Chester. Hand me the bucket. I guess you were right, Chester. Nobody's going to make it to that well. At least not in the daylight.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm all right.
I'll get the water, Marshal.
Now, they'll blow you to kingdom come, Reverend.
I'm a man of the cloth. They won't shoot at me.
Why, them fellas would shoot their own mothers to get at that gold.
I wouldn't count on being safe, Reverend. We better wait for dark.
Jim Buck may not have that much time. Hand me that other bucket there. Seems to be a hole in the one you carried, Marshal.
It's not worth the chance, Reverend.
A man's life is worth any chance. Please, stand away from the door.
Okay.
Thank you.
John, they shot him before he got out the door.
Yeah, come on, let's get him inside.
Now, there's 2 wounded in bad need of water.
No, Chester, he won't be needing any. He's dead.
Ain't no sense to killing a man like him. Ain't no sense at all.
They're not interested in the kind of men they killed, Chester.
Well, what do they mean to do, Mr. Dillon? Whatever more of rock. It's got something tied around it.
Yeah. Well, here's your answer about what they mean to do in this note.
What's it say?
We got food and water and time to wait for the gold.
What are you going to do, Mr. Dillon?
I don't know, Chester. But I don't like my choices.
Here's your share, the last bit of the food, Marshal.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sorry there's nothing to wash it down with.
How's Jim doing?
Not well. I'm very fearful for him if we don't get help soon.
Yes, ma'am.
You and Chester, you've been at the windows for hours. Do you see any way out for us?
No, not right now. In the daylight.
But tonight?
Well, we had one more man to draw their fire.
Maybe I could do it.
No, things aren't that bad yet. Don't you worry, ma'am. We'll get out of this some way.
Go ahead, Marshal. Let her help you. That's about what I'd figure from you.
That's enough, Gurney.
I'll take around the rest of the food. Chester?
Thank you.
Here's your share.
Thanks.
I'll untie your hands.
You ain't afraid of me.
Well, no. I'm not afraid of you.
Well, most folks are.
Does it please you that they're afraid?
No, ma'am, I guess it doesn't.
Take the food.
Thanks. You really meant it when you said you'd walk out there to help the marshal. You really meant that.
Certainly I meant it.
What makes you figure it'd be worth it?
Why, because there's a need, Mr. Gurney. There's a badly wounded man. We have to get him out some way.
That ain't much of a reason to risk your life.
I think it is, Mr. Gurney.
Why?
I think it's important to be needed. Don't you?
I don't know I ever gave it much thought.
Chester.
Oh, Mr. Dillon.
You seen anything moving?
That's right. But I wouldn't claim that my eyes was too good by now, though.
Yeah. It's been a long night.
Mr. Dillon, you think them fellas out there are getting any sleep?
I'm not worried about whether they're getting any sleep or not, Chester.
Seems like the night's the only chance we got to make moves.
Yeah.
Mr. Dillon, we've got to get water. I know I can get out to the well and back.
Let's understand each other,
Marshal,
ma'am.
this man is dying.
I know that, ma'am. But getting somebody else killed isn't going to help any.
Is the gold this important? Couldn't we give them the gold to save a man's life?
This man risked his life for it once. It's up to us to see that he didn't do it for nothing.
I'm not going to wait. I'm going out there.
Now, you listen to me, ma'am. Nobody's going to get anywhere running out there alone. For any of us to have a chance, we're going to have to know exactly where those men are. We'll have just one shot at them if we're lucky.
Mr. Dillon, this Gurney making a break for it. I'll go after him.
No, they get you too.
Up in the trees, Chester. Get him.
You think shooting's over?
I gotta think so, Chester. Now, you keep an eye on those trees. I'm going out to where Gurney fell.
Yeah.
I think it's over, Chester. Come on out.
All right, Mr. Dillon.
I'm coming with you.
You didn't need to come, ma'am. It's not a pretty sight.
Is he dead?
Yes, ma'am. I guess the others are dead, too.
What an awful way to end a life.
Well, he didn't have much chance of ending it any better.
He sure was a fool making a break for it like that. Why, it was certain death.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure that's what he was doing.
What?
Maybe he wasn't making a break for it.
Of course he was. My goodness, why else would he run out that way?
To save our lives. Maybe he knew he could by drawing that fire.
He was going back to be tried for murder, you know.
I know. But you said yourself that a man can't be judged guilty until a court of law finds him so. It's possible that he would have gone free, Marshal.
Yes, ma'am, that's possible.
So I'd like to think that this was an unselfish act. That he wanted to do one thing with dignity, even if it meant his death. It wouldn't hurt to think that, would it, Marshal?
No, ma'am. It wouldn't hurt a bit. Because dignity is something that should never be taken from any man.
Car owners, I have news of a product so new, it's amazing it's here today at all. It's new K-Site Smooth Seal.
You say it's new?
You say it's new?
So it's new. What does it do?
Well, it's a fluid you add to your automatic transmission. It stops the leaks in your transmission and makes it smooth and quiet.
Makes it smooth?
Makes it quiet?
How can I tell if I should try it?
That's easy. You're stopped, see, and you start to go, and you give it the gas pretty good. If you hear a sort of whirring or a grinding noise, if you feel a jerk or jolt or jar, then your transmission just isn't up to par.
Grinding noises, jars and jerks. That's how my transmission works.
Boys, if that's the case, then you've got a case for new K-Site Smooth Seal.
New K-Site Smooth Seal? How will that help?
Well, it's made to soften those shrunken seals and smooth out the shifting when there's power on the wheels. If you heard a whirring or felt a jar when you pull away in your modern car, you are a man who needs a can. Just $1.95, and it works while you drive. Anyone here for K-Site Smooth Seal?
Hit me.
I'm in.
If it doesn't do the job,
You get double your money back.
Gunsmoke. Produced and directed in Hollywood by Norman Macdonald, stars William Conrad as Matt Dillon, U.S. Marshal. The story was specially written for Gunsmoke by Marion Clark, with editorial supervision by John Meston. Featured in the cast were Gene Bates, Vic Perrin, Harry Bartell, and Barney Phillips. Harley Bear is Chester, Howard McNear is Doc, and Georgia Ellis is Kitty. KMOX Radio, the voice of St. Louis, speaks now from the nation's most modern radio studios, featuring the latest electronic miracles. A pace-setting building for a pace-setting radio station. This is George Walsh inviting you to join us again next week when CBS Radio presents another story on Gunsmoke.
Latest news follows, then Mitch Miller with tonight's guest stars on the CBS Radio Network.
And KNX, AM and FM, CBS Radio in Los Angeles.
That was a pretty good one. That was from a live broadcast of the show, which they did do from time to time. You can always tell the live shows by the variety of the commercials that played. No one advertiser, you see. Also, they tend to be of poor recording quality. Gunsmoke had many sponsors over the 20 years the show ran. Everyone from Chester cigarettes to top brand cereal companies. Later, the show was picked up by Armed Forces Radio, and they used fillers rather than commercials. For example, they would tell of historical events or legends like Paul Bunyan in place of selling soap or cigars. True stuff. The date is April 19th, 1951, and this is A Moment in Time. There have been many moving speeches given over the years. When I was flipping through the news archive this week, I came across one given by General Douglas MacArthur on April 19th, 1951. Now, a few days before this speech, President Harry S. Truman had relieved him as commander of the U.S. forces fighting in Korea. MacArthur had publicly challenged Truman's leadership by threatening to attack China directly, a strategy that the U.S. feared would spark an even wider war. MacArthur's dismissal was not popular. Americans revered him as the mastermind of the victorious Pacific Campaign in World War II. 250,000 people filled the National Mall to cheer the war hero. What we're about to hear today is an excerpt from this speech.
Some may say, to avoid spread of the conflict into an all-out war with China. Others, to avoid Soviet intervention. Neither explanation seems valid, for China is already engaging with the maximum power it can commit, and the Soviet will not necessarily mesh its actions with our moves. Like a cobra, any new enemy will more likely strike whenever it feels that the relativity in military or other potential is in its favor on a worldwide basis. The tragedy of Korea is further heightened by the fact that as military action is confined to its territorial limits, it condemns that nation, which it is our purpose to save, to suffer the devastating impact of full naval and air bombardment while the enemy's sanctuaries are fully protected from such attack and devastation. Of the nations of the world, Korea alone, up to now, is the sole one which has risked its all against communism. The magnificence of the courage and fortitude of the Korean people defies description. They have chosen to risk death rather than slavery. Their last words to me were, "Don't scuttle the Pacific." I have just left your fighting sons in Korea. They have met all tests there, and I can report to you without reservation, they are splendid in every way. It was my constant effort to preserve them and end this savage conflict honorably and with the least loss of time and a minimum sacrifice of life. Its growing bloodshed has caused me the deepest anguish and anxiety. Those gallant men will remain often in my thoughts and in my prayers always. I am closing my 52 years of military service. When I joined the Army, even before the turn of the century, it was the fulfillment of all my boyish hopes and dreams. The world has turned over many times since I took the oath on the plain at West Point, and the hopes and dreams have long since vanished. But I still remember the refrain of one of the most popular barrack ballads of that day, which proclaimed most proudly that old soldiers never die. They just fade away. And like the old soldier of that ballad, I now close my military career and just fade away. An old soldier who tried to do his duty as God gave him the light to see that duty. Goodbye.
Now, I knew that I couldn't play the entire thing, but I wanted you guys to hear at least part of it for yourself. If you look at the problems that still plague us today from North Korea and China, one is left to wonder if MacArthur was right some 65 plus years ago. Food for thought, anyway. And now, for something completely different.
Space Patrol! Space Patrol! High adventure in the wild, vast reaches of space. Missions of daring in the name of interplanetary justice. Travel into the future with Buzz Corey, Commander-in-Chief of the Space Patrol. The Space Patrol, relentless foe of those who menace the freedom of the space lanes. But the Space Patrol was not always a powerful instrument of justice. Once its ships clung close to the planets, powerless to combat the bold marauders who terrorized the void. And then, in a universe filled with fear and chaos, there appeared a leader. This is the story of a man whose vision and courage extended to the stars. The story of how Buzz Corey became Commander-in-Chief of the Space Patrol. Our story begins when Buzz Corey was still a captain, piloting a Space Patrol cruiser on a routine mission just off the man-made planet Terra. With him is Cadet Happy, accompanying the captain as student observer. During the patrol, Hap is permitted to take a routine spaceophone message from headquarters. Suddenly, he turns to Captain Corey.
Captain, it's the Secretary General.
Thanks, Happy. Captain Corey aboard Terra 1. Go ahead, Mr. Secretary.
Captain Corey, you will meet the Interplanet Express at the limit of the Terra Patrol perimeter and escort it to Terra Spaceport.
Yes, sir.
The Express is now inward bound from Mars on Space Meridian 109.7. It's carrying the plans for the new top-secret space drive.
I see. Then I'm to relieve the Mars escort ship at the perimeter, sir?
No, Captain. The Mars escort dropped out at the Mars perimeter.
And that means the Express will be without escort between perimeters.
I know your view on that situation, Corey. But until we get more ships and men, we'll have to be watchdogs on a short chain. That's all, Captain.
Very well, Mr. Secretary. I'll proceed as directed. Corey out.
As the Interplanet Express enters the vast, unpatrolled region between perimeters, another ship approaches. At the controls is the tyrant ruler of the planet Neptune, Prince Baccarati. At his side, Dr. Malengro, evil scientific genius, now aiding Baccarati in his subversive acts against the United Planets.
That's the Express, all right, Malengro.
Get that null ray working before a space patrol ship shows up.
Null ray is ready, Your Highness.
Are you sure it will put their ship out of control?
Oh, completely. We'll neutralize their power, their weapons, and their spaceophone.
What about our weapons after we're aboard the Express?
Our ray guns are shielded. The null ray won't affect them.
Then turn on the ray. It works. Their rockets cut out. Now let's board them and get the space drive plans.
When Buzz and Happy finally sight the Interplanet Express, it's a silent, powerless hulk, drifting in space. Joining the patrol ship airlock to the Express with a magnetic holding field, Buzz and Happy enter the ship to find the entire crew unconscious. After reviving the crew, Buzz questions the still dazed pilot.
And the power failed just as the other ship appeared.
Yes, Captain. None of our weapons worked either. 2 men boarded us and knocked us out with ray guns. I guess they got the microfilm, the space drive plans.
They got them, Lieutenant.
I think the controls will work now, sir. The instruments checked.
Thanks, Happy. Now, Lieutenant, can you describe that ship?
It was black with a red circle on the hull. In the circle was a black falcon.
Those plans are on their way to Neptune. The black falcon is the emblem of Prince Baccarati. Come on, Hap, back to our ship. I'll catch Baccarati if I have to chase them all the way to Arcturus.
With all rockets blasting, Buzz and Happy head toward Neptune, across the Mars orbit, through the asteroid belt, out past Jupiter. And now the ring planet Saturn is framed in their starboard viewport.
Captain, there's a ship in the viewscope, and there's a black falcon on the hull.
It's Baccarati. Let's get him.
Using every ounce of power, Buzz Corey brings his cruiser closer to Baccarati's ship. 3 times he challenges the fugitive to halt, but the prince ignores him.
This is your last warning, Baccarati. Cut your rockets. We're coming aboard.
You're off limits, Corey. Go back home before you get hurt.
You asked for it. Happy, stand by to fire space torpedoes.
Standing by, sir.
Fire 1.
Something's wrong with the firing mechanism. Hey, what happened to our rockets?
The power's off.
That's right, Corey. Your ship's dead. Power, weapon, and servo mechanism. I'm going to tow you way out in space where you'll never be found. And then I'm going to blast your ship to junk.
A few seconds later, a powerful force field magnetizes the Space Patrol cruiser to the hull of Baccarati's ship. Desperately, Buzz and Happy try to cut on their power as their cruiser is dragged far off the space lanes.
Whatever Baccarati's got, it cut off all the power in the ship, even the spaceophone. It looks like we're licked, sir.
Not yet. You might have a field of radiation that neutralizes electronic impulses, but not the nuclear reactors.
But our rockets are off.
Remember, the rocket controls are electronic. Hap, get an atomo torch out of the emergency toolkit.
Yes, sir. I've got it, sir.
Try the torch.
It works.
Well, that's enough. I'll get our spacesuits out of the locker. We're going to cut our way out of this ship and into Baccarati's.
In their spacesuits, Buzz and Happy go to work with the powerful atomo cutting torches. In a matter of minutes, they cut a hole in the hull of their cruiser. A few moments more, and they're through the hull of Baccarati's ship in an aft compartment. Now, outside the field of the null ray, the spaceophone transmitters in their spacesuits work perfectly.
Well, that does it. Quickly, into the next compartment and seal this one off. Yes, sir. Let's get out of these spacesuits. If Baccarati wants action, we'll give it to him.
Your Highness?
Yes, Malengo, what is it?
The air pressure indicator for aft compartment 6A, it's dropped. Well, go back and check. Hold it right where you are.
Space Patrolman! Malengo, use your ray gun!
No, you don't. Right it, chum!
Now, if you're through playing Baccarati, I'll relieve you of that microfilm you took off the Interplanet Express.
A few days later, back on the man-made planet Terra, Buzz, Corey, and Cadet Happy stand before the Secretary General of the United Planets.
I wanted to tell you, Corey, and Cadet Happy, that ships with the new superpower space drive are already in production.
I'm glad to hear it, Mr. Secretary.
Yes, sir.
That means, of course, that all the planets can extend their defense perimeters considerably.
That's fine, sir.
That'll solve many of our problems, but it creates others. One is to find a man who can organize the individual planet defenses into one operation. I've solved that problem. The other problems, Corey, are up to you.
To me, sir?
Yes. You are now Commander-in-Chief of the Space Patrol. Well, Corey, haven't you anything to say?
Well,
congratulations, Captain. Commander. Oh, smoking rockets.
There you have a potpourri of stories and what I like to call a podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember that I'm still looking for your stories and you need to share them. In fact, if you have a fiction story that you want to tell us, it's all good. So contact me today. Want to know what's happening on Ron's Amazing Stories? Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or sign up for the weekly newsletter. All of the links and access to the blog can be found at ronsamazingstories.com. That's ronsamazingstories.com. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.